To be lunging Atlas for the first time today. So he's already done all his basic learning to lead stuff, and he's pretty good at it. So now I'm going to just kind of put the pieces together and do some lunging. So I'm just attaching the lunge line here, and I'm just going to kind of start sending him off. That's the first part. So I'm just going to pick my hand up, and there he goes off into a nice little circle. So that's perfect. So as he takes a couple steps, I'm going to click and feed. So I'm just lifting my arm in the direction I want him to go, so like this, and then it makes a little bit of contact to his halter. He's going to follow that and then go off in the circle. If he doesn't follow that, then I'm going to use my whip kind of toward the middle of his belly and suggest that he go forward. And then once he goes forward a couple steps, I'm going to click and feed. And that's the process I use. And it's just a couple steps in the beginning, but then we'll build on those steps and keep asking. So every time he stops, I'm just going to send him off again. And then he'll continue on the circle and he'll just lunge regularly. So, and I'm just going to send him the other way. So that was very nice. So he crossed over well and just started going off to my left here. So I'm going to reward him for that. That looked really good. And I'm just going to do a little bit of desensitizing. I'm just going to fast forward through that a bit and work on sending him off a bit more. I'll cruise through that. He's being pretty good because I want to do some desensitizing in there too, because I don't want him to get worried about my tools, and he's being pretty great so far. So off he goes. And then he went a few steps. I'm going to click and go ahead and feed him. And ask him to go again. And he's really bending quite nicely. So his attention is on me. He's paying attention, and he's got a nice bend that's the same as the bend of the circle. So he's stepping that inside hind leg around, and you can see his neck is bent toward me. So that looks really good. And then I just kind of picked up my hand toward his hip and had him do a little hindquarter yield. So he thought he might want to go off to his left here. And I'm just going to send him back off to my left. So he's going on a circle counterclockwise. I'm just kind of practice sending each way and just kind of messing with that a little bit and making sure it's not freaking him out, and he can kind of feel the pressure and then go off. So here you can see him in his nice little bend there. So then I just kind of picked up my leading hand that I have the rope in up toward his hip, and that's going to push his hips away and have him do a hindquarter yield and face me. So he was anticipating a bit there, so I'm just going to bring my whip out, let him sniff it, kind of move him around and desensitize him to it here, and just kind of cut that part out there. So same kind of thing, we're just doing a bit of desensitizing, and then we're back to sending. So here he's going to go ahead and do a bit more of a circle. So there we go. This looks really nice too. He's doing well. He's a little bit more has a bit more energy. He's a bit more worried than I'd like. Like you could see when he did his hindquarter yield, he was kind of moving his feet like in a shuffly way. And right here, like I'm just kind of trying to get him a little bit further away from me, but he looks really good. So, and I've built up to the point where he's doing like a whole circle roughly. So I just kind of cut out earlier where we were doing some desensitizing, and then because you've seen that a million times. So this looks pretty good. And so I just kind of have to pick my hand up and have him keep going on the circle there, and then lift it up there, and he does a nice little hindquarter yield. So he's doing pretty good. Not bad. So I'm just going to send him off again, and I'm just being really gentle and soft with the rope. Nothing quick or fast, or I'm not going to be pulling on him or anything, because he's just learning. He's just figuring out what it is I want. I'm just going to put a bit pressure on his belly there to kind of move him out, because he likes to be a little bit too close to me. I just don't want him to spook on top of me, so that's why I'm using that pressure there. I'll let him sniff there and then let him send out. But he's being really responsive. I've just barely touched on the halter rope there, and he's sending off, so it looks really good. So inside hind leg step underneath himself. He stepped a bit too much and wanted to do a hindquarter yield, but that looks really, really nice. And I just click him at random times while he's on the circle. So he could just do a whole circle, do a half circle, just like good little moments, all reward for him. So yield his hindquarters. This looks really good. So I'm just going to go ahead and yield his hindquarters. I'm going to do that same movement. I'm going to pick up my rope to just kind of push his hindquarters over, and he steps spread across, so that looks nice. Go ahead and do it the other way. I just kind of pick up my hand a bit And I'm just kind of looking at his hindquarters and moving him over that way, and then ask him to back up a bit. He was blocking me just a little bit there. So I wanted him to just back up a bit, and he was a little bit worried about that pressure on the lead rope. So I just keep going with that, just a little bit of pressure. See, he's not sure what I want. And I'm just going to wait and keep that small amount of pressure going until he finds it and backs up, and I'll let go, and I'll click him at the same time and give him a treat. So I'm just repeating here, saying, no, let's back up, which we've done before a little bit. He's just confused because he's been doing the sending and he's been being rewarded for that. So he's showing me like, oh, well, I thought I'm supposed to send around. I thought I'm supposed to go. And then he's like, well, if that's not it, like, then he's just kind of worrying himself. So I'm just bending him here and saying, no, we're not sending. That's not what I want. Right, like that. And then I'm just going to start again, just very lightly shaking the rope. And it's not, the clip's not banging around on his face. I'm just asking him lightly to just think through the pressure and back up instead of going forward. So, and that's what he needs, is to think through some stuff and play around with that, because that's going to be his life, is thinking through pressure and figuring it out like a puzzle instead of panicking. So there he backed up, so I'm just going to let go, and then I clicked at the same time, and I'll go ahead and give him a treat. So I really want him to think, oh, okay, let's figure this out, versus, oh my gosh, pressure, I'm just going to run away. So that's really the key to horse training, really, getting him to think through things quietly versus just react. So that's what we're doing there. And it helps because to do these different things, because he was sending and he was doing it really well. And then I threw something else in and he was like, no, that's not what the answer is. And I was like, yes, like backing up is the answer. He's trying to tell me that sending off was what I wanted. And I'm like, no, you can figure it out. So I like to throw in a few different exercises in there and help him figure it out. But I'm not also going to expect him to like back all the way, halfway across the round pen. I'm not going to expect that. One little step is all I want. So I just want him to think through it a bit. That's all. So I'm going to go back and do a bit of lunging. I'm just kind of moving my rope around. I don't want him to anticipate too much. He's getting a little worried, so I'm going to move this around and make sure he's okay with it. So he's really watching it, and he just kind of wanted to move his feet a bit, and I just want him to do the opposite and do a bit of desensitizing instead. So let him target it there, and then we'll do a bit of desensitizing. And we'll kind of fast forward through some of the desensitizing because it just gets repetitive. So I've desensitized him to the rope just a little bit more, and then I'm just kind of rubbing the stick on him a little bit more. And then I'm going to work on some head down here. So he hasn't really done a lot of that in the halter, and he kind of has a habit of kind of raising his head, not to the point where it's way up in the air, but I'd like it to be lower, and I'd like to kind of control its level. So I'm just going to, I took the rope off, and I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure on where you would clip the halter to, and I'm just going to hold that and wait for him to lower his head just a little bit. And then when he does, I'm going to let go and click at the same time, and then feed him a treat. So it's just very, very small, which is kind of hard to see from this distance, but there we go. And he's backing up a bit, which I just kind of held on to that. And then once he stopped his feet and lowered his head, I clicked and let go. So that was pretty good. Not too bad. I just want him to really think about giving to the pressure versus pulling away from it and trying to escape. And that was nice. So this is going to be the next day, and I'm just going to run through a bit of desensitizing again. Just kind of throwing it on his legs. I have tossed it up over his head a little bit, up over his back, and just do a lot of desensitizing for him because he just has a lot of tension and fear of the rope. So I'm just really doing a lot of that. But we're just going to run through that real quick because it's, again, repetitive. But I wanted to show a little clip of it because this is the real training session. So I switch between cutting it out and going really quickly through it just so for the sake of time and so it's not ridiculously long. But this one wasn't super long, so I could speed through it a bit and kind of show you what else he was working on. So, but now we're gonna work on a bit of lunging again. So send him off. Very nice send off. I like this bend in his body, looks great. Very, very nice. And he's really progressed to doing like whole circles really fast, so he looks great. So I click him there and go ahead and feed him. That looks super. Okay, organized, and I'm gonna send him off the other way. He wants to kind of look at the rope a bit and be a little bit worried about it being in front of him, but he's figuring it out, and his circles look really nice. Not bad. That's looking pretty good. And then a bit more desensitizing. So that was all the lunging we did that day. So this is like, that was the 10th. This is the 18th. So it's been a little bit. And we're just going to go back and do a bit more work on that. So he didn't end up, since the last clip, that was not a super lot. Like he lunged once each direction. So this day I did a little bit more work with him and just kind of getting him to lunge a bit more and do a few different things. So I'm just going to kind of repeat what we did previously, since he's had about 10 days off or 8 days, something like that. And then we'll just kind of add in some new stuff. So send him off. Very nice. And I'm just going to kind of send him off just like I would, a horse that's lunged the whole time. It's going to be the same thing. I'm just going to do a couple different things. Like I'll probably stand to one side. Like if I was going to send him off from this position to my right, I would kind of shut the door on this side. So I'm standing on this side, his left side, or his right side, to my left, and I would open it and push him the other way. So in the beginning, I kind of do that. I haven't done that here because I'm kind of moving on to different things. If you were to get really confused or start getting worried, I would go ahead and do that. But I really want him to start following the rope. And so I'm starting to just not rely on my position as much and more so on the rope. So he can follow that and go off of that versus where I'm standing. So like there, he went off to my left, and I'm just going to say, no, let's go to the right. And he's a little worried. He's like, I think I'm going to keep going the other way. But then he came off of it and went the direction that I wanted. So I went ahead and clicked and fed for that. So really right now I'm looking at more of, can you move off of the rope pressure and follow that versus where my body position is, which I did in the first day that you saw there. He just spooked at nothing. He's fine. And he's a little bit looky, and this is a new thing for him, so he's kind of paying attention to everything, but he is listening quite well, and that was a nice hindquarter yield. But I'm trying to show him the answer as much as possible, but kind of challenging him just a little bit, so nothing crazy. So he's just kind of confused on where to go today. I think he's a bit worried of having the rope almost horizontal, so once the slack kind of comes out of it, he starts snorting a bit and looking down at it. So I think that's the part where he's worried about it. But he looks good. I'm gonna step in front of him and see if he'll draw to me, and then that looks really nice. He hasn't really done that on the lunge before, so that looks really good. And he's done round pen stuff, so he already knows how to do that. So I'm already setting him up, and then we'll work on sending him here. So he's thinking about it, but he's kind of hesitant to move because that rope is horizontal, and he's like, I'm not so sure about that. And then he'll leave, and to him it looks like he's chasing him, so he gets a bit worried about that. I'm like, no, you just got to follow the rope. It's not a big deal. So I'm just gonna lightly hold it here, keep asking him. I'm like, what is the problem? So he's just, I think it looks like the rope electric fence, and he's just generalizes that it's going to be scary and shock him, but I'm just going to keep asking here lightly, keep trying to show him the correct answer. So I'm just going to say, no, let's go this way. Not a big deal. I'm not putting any pressure. And he was just like, nope, that's terrifying. Can't stay there for that. So I'm just going to work through it. It's not a big deal. He's not reacting horribly to the rope dragging, which is nice, and he just went one lap and stopped. So I'm like, there's no sense in chasing him, making him run around. He's already worried. It's not a big deal. I'm just going to pick the rope back up and just keep doing what we were doing. And there we go. Not a big deal. So I don't love that he ran off there. I don't like that. I would like to try to get, his head around and try to hold him. But even though he's a little horse, I'm not super strong. He is stronger than me. He can get away from me. So I try to minimize that because I don't want that. But it's not the end of the world if he does. So we're just going to work through it. But there is also no sense in chasing him and getting after him once he does that. It's just going to scare him some more. So what's going to build up his confidence and help our training is that I just go back to what we were doing. And then when he does it correctly, I reward him. And I'm like, yeah, that was awesome. So he's like, okay, well, it wasn't the end of the world. It was fine. So now he can do it and he was fine. So I don't know in that case if it was necessarily just the rope or if he saw something on the ground. There's some hair from Castor that I just groomed off of him on the ground. So I'm not sure exactly what he saw, but he was worried about something. So, but I'll try to figure it out, but I'm not super concerned, like finding out exactly what it is. Like, oh my gosh, was it this that scared him? Was it that scared him? Like, I'd like to know, but I'm not going to kind of dwell on that because, things scare horses all the time. It's not necessarily what it is that I can work him through a spook. So, that's why I'm not too worried about it. But then he came back and he was really good. So it's good to show, him working through a problem. That was really nice. He stepped across and he's got that nice neck bend. He's stepping underneath himself. This looks great. Really, like, he's got the lunging down. Like, this is perfect lunging, minus his hiccups. But as far as like his movement, on the lunge and his body position, that looks great. That's exactly what you're looking for. So it really helps when you start it correctly the first time. Then you don't have to fix it later on, which is fun because fixing is always going to be harder than just starting correctly. He's got that hindquarter yield down. That looks great. Go ahead and just move. I moved him over to the side here, or to the middle here so you can see a bit better. And just continue with some lunging. He looks great. And it really helped. The neck bend I really got from using the food. So he's just really paying attention to me. That looked really nice. He did a nice hindquarter yield. So I'm just connecting things together. So I did a hindquarter yield and then asked him to go off the other way. So that looks wonderful. Here we go. Do the same thing this way. See if he can go off. Back that way where he was a little worried last time. And I'm not sure what it is about going this way. And there we go. He was like, not super sure. Maybe it's because he didn't want to go between me and the mounting block there. But that looks really nice. But the treats help with the neck bend because he's already interested in me. He's looking to me like, okay, like he wants to look for something. Like it just brings his focus to me. So that definitely helps. And eventually, like, the goal is to not have them all the time, the treats all the time, but retain that focus. So, but that is part of why he has that. And he's being really soft on the rope too. So I'm being really light. I don't need to pull on his face. So that really helps as well. But this looks much better than when he was super worried earlier. So we're going to work on the back up just a bit and see if he can handle that and remember what it means. So there he took a nice step back. So he didn't get nearly as worried as he did the previous time. So that is great. And he's figuring it out a lot faster. So we'll take that. And he's going off really nicely. Like it didn't even make contact with the halter. So that looks great. And really the more like hindquarter yields, the more he moves off of pressure and sends onto the circle, the better his leading's going to be. And if, he wants to get worried and kind of pull away, the more I can control him, which you'll see throughout the series is that I can control him a bit better because he just has more leading skills and lunging skills and everything to do with pressure release on the halter. So that looks really good. So I'm going to ask him to back up again. That looked awesome. He thought through it. He wasn't panicking. He just was like, oh, okay, back up. So much better than the last lesson that you saw where he was just could not figure it out. So that looks good. But also when you're using food in your clicker training, that does happen. So when I'm asking him for something and I've been rewarding that thing and then I ask him for something else, they're going to probably try to continue showing you the behavior that you've been reinforcing. So that is something that happens. It's not a big deal. They'll figure it out. Just consistently keep asking until you get the one you are asking for now. So Not a big deal. They have to differentiate between what you're asking right now and then different behaviors for different cues, and that's just part of the learning curve, so it's not a big deal. So I got a little bit closer to this fence so we could do a bit of a sending lesson. So like I want to send him between me and the panels, but I'm not going to get super close at first because obviously he's still learning to lunge. He's not super confident going between me and the mounting block, so he's not going to be super confident going between me and the panels, so I'm not going to start with me like 5 feet from the panels. That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So he tried going forward there, so I went ahead and rewarded him and let him chew on that, and then this looks really good. He went ahead and went on through because he was a little bit skeptical, like not so sure that he wanted to go between me and the panels, but that looked really awesome right there. He had a nice bend going through the panels. It looks great. So this one time I'm going to work on lowering his head from my hand on his pole, and that he lowered it just a bit, and then I want him to just kind of wait, bend his neck, and then lower his head and drop the halter.